Welcome to the New and Go podcast series. We are thrilled you've joined us for another deep dive.
Great to be diving in again.
Our mission, as always, is to take a whole stack of information, sift through it, and pull out those surprising, digestible insights, basically helping you get instantly more informed. And today, we're plunging headfirst into the incredible, sometimes mysterious, always fascinating world of mummies.
Absolutely fascinating.
We're going to explore what these ancient preserved bodies really tell us about history, society, and, even the surprising bureaucratic quirks of the past.
That passport story later is just fantastic.
Right. And it might surprise you, actually, that while mummies are like these incredibly prized artifacts today, it wasn't always like that, especially before the 19th century. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, what's truly fascinating here is just how much mummies continue to captivate us. They're not just dusty relics in a museum case, are they?
No, not at all.
They're real windows into the past, offering these incredibly intimate glimpses into lives lived thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
And, beyond the whole pop culture thing, the curses and tombs imagery, each of Discovery we'll talk about today, it's really a testament to some serious archaeological work, scientific breakthroughs, and sometimes, just pure luck.
Serendipity.
They reveal so much more than just, how people were buried.
Absolutely. And it's important to get that mummification didn't just pop up fully formed, this super elaborate ritual.
Right.
Before the fancy artificial methods became common, nature itself was often doing the preserving. We're talking accidental mummification, really, just driven by the environment.
The desert doing its thing.
Exactly. So our first stop on this journey takes us way back to one of the earliest, maybe most iconic examples of this natural process. A mummy affectionately nicknamed Ginger.
Ah, yes, Ginger. Probably the most famous of 6 naturally mummified bodies that were dug up from shallow graves in the Egyptian desert. This was back in the late 19th century.
6 of them. Wow.
Yeah, and the really remarkable thing about Ginger and the others found there is just how old they are. They date back to roughly 3400 BC.
3400 BC. So they're the oldest known mummies then?
The oldest known, yes. At that time, complex artificial mummification.
Yeah.
Well, it just wasn't really a widespread practice, maybe not even conceived of yet.
Right.
Instead, their bodies were just naturally dried out and preserved by the hot, dry sand they were buried in. It's pretty amazing when you think about it, the power of the environment.
It really is. Just turning a simple burial into perfect preservation. Incredible that nature kind of accidentally laid the groundwork for what became such a huge part of their culture. And here's where it gets really interesting. Ginger goes on public display at the British Museum in 1901, the very first mummy ever shown publicly.
Yeah, that was huge.
What kind of impact did that have? Seeing Ginger, I mean, because this wasn't some grand king, just an ordinary person preserved by sand.
Well, that's a really powerful point. Ginger's display wasn't just, another museum exhibit. It was a bit of a watershed moment, actually.
Also.
Before Ginger, mummies were often seen through this lens of, sensationalism or even kind of morbid curiosity, treasure hunting, basically.
Like curses and gold.
Exactly. But seeing Ginger, this naturally preserved person, it provided a real tangible link to this incredibly distant past. It sparked genuine archaeological and scientific interest, not just a grab for artifacts.
So it shifted the perspective.
It helped, yeah. Shifted it from creepy curio to valuable human remains worthy of scientific study. It showed how early Egyptians might have learned from observing nature, before they developed all the complex artificial techniques. This accidental preservation really kind of laid the intellectual groundwork.
Okay, so from these accidental natural mummies, we then see this incredible rise of sophisticated artificial mummification. Especially for the elite, right? The pharaohs and nobles. This wasn't just about preserving a body anymore. It was about guaranteeing that safe passage to the afterlife. A whole different level of intent.
Indeed. And that transition, it marks this profound shift in how Egyptians viewed the afterlife and how meticulously they prepared their powerful leaders for it.
You really see the effort.
Oh, yeah. That's when you start seeing the deliberate artistry, the advanced chemical knowledge, the deep religious conviction all poured into the preservation process. The precision involved is just, well, it's astounding.
And speaking of powerful leaders, one name that comes up, maybe not as instantly famous as Tut, but hugely significant, is Hatshepsut.
Ah, the female pharaoh.
Exactly. A major player reigned for about 2 decades, until maybe 1458 BC. known for huge building projects, like her temple at Deir el-Bahari, and establishing new trade routes, like that famous trip to Punt.
A very successful reign.
Very. But her mummy, well, that turned into quite the mystery for a very long time.
Oh, it's a fantastic archaeological detective story, really, spanning over a century. So Howard Carter,
The King Tut guy.
the very same one, yes. Before Tut, back in 1902, he discovered Hatshepsut's royal tomb in the Valley of the Kings. Standard procedure, find the tomb.
Okay.
But when he eventually located her sarcophagus, a few years later, I think, it was completely empty.
Empty. Oh, no.
Empty. Now, Carter also found another tomb nearby, KV-60 it's called. Inside were 2 coffins. One had an inscription identified as Hatshepsut's wet nurse.
Okay, so one identified.
Right. But the other coffin held an unknown female mummy. And for decades, just a puzzle. Who was she? Where was Hatshepsut?
Wow. An empty sarcophagus after all that digging.
Yeah.
That must have been incredibly frustrating for Carter.
Oh, absolutely.
What were the theories? Like, where did people think her mummy went? Because that's a real cold case.
It really was. Theories ranged from her body being destroyed by her stepson, Thutmose III. You know, he tried to erase her memory from monuments and things.
Right, the Damnatio Memoria.
Exactly. Or maybe she was just lost among the many, many unidentified royal mummies found over the years. The mystery definitely kept archaeologists digging, metaphorically speaking, for generations.
Okay, so decades passed.
Decades. Then, fast forward to 2006, a team led by Dr. Zahi Hawass decides to really tackle this. Can they figure out if that anonymous woman in KV-60 is actually the missing queen, using modern forensics this time?
And this is where the pieces finally clicked together. What was the breakthrough? The critical clue.
The breakthrough was amazing. It was small, but incredibly precise. A molar tooth.
A tooth.
A single molar tooth found inside a wooden box that was clearly inscribed with Hatshepsut's name. It was found elsewhere, not even in KV-60 originally, I believe.
Okay.
So Hawass and his team, they take this loose tooth and they compare it to the mummy in KV-60. And there's this distinct gap in her upper jaw.
Don't tell me.
It was a perfect fit, undeniable.
Wow. After all that time.
After all that time, that molar confirmed it. The long search for Hatshepsut was finally over. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, it just shows the incredible precision needed, the painstaking work, sometimes taking decades to identify these ancient figures. Even when the first clues were found, a century earlier, a single detail like that tooth can unlock these huge historical truths. Amazing.
Truly amazing forensic work. Okay, from one royal mystery solved, let's move to probably the most famous pharaoh of all time, certainly the most famous discovery, Tutankhamun. King Tut.
The Boy King.
The Boy King, yeah. Pharaoh, at just 9 years old, ruled for about 10 years, maybe 1333 to 1324 BC. And it's wild, isn't it? He was relatively minor, kind of obscure during his own lifetime.
Almost forgotten, really.
But then becomes this global household name centuries later, all thanks to one absolutely extraordinary discovery.
That discovery was, well, remarkable is an understatement. Probably the single most famous archaeological find ever. Howard Carter again, 1922, Valley of the Kings.
And what made it so stunning, compared to other royal tombs?
It was the stuff, the sheer wealth of ancient treasures crammed inside. See, most royal tombs had been heavily looted over the millennia.
Right. Picked clean, usually.
Mostly. But Tut's tomb, while it looks like maybe robbers got in briefly, it was largely intact. It still held over 5,000 artifacts.
5,000.
Yeah. Jewelry, gilded shrines, statues, chariots, furniture, and of course that absolutely iconic solid gold funerary mask.
The mask, yeah. Breathtaking.
It was just unprecedented. A complete pharaoh's burial assemblage, basically. Gave us this unvarnished look into the world, the actual possessions of a pharaoh.
But this incredible discovery also kicked off something else, didn't it? That persistent myth. The mummy's curse.
Yes.
Carter's financier, Lord Carnarvon, he died from an infected mosquito bite just months after the tomb was opened. And boom, the media ran with it.
Yep.
Anyone disturbing the tomb would suffer Tut's wrath.
Right. Bad timing for Carnarvon, great timing for sensational news.
How much do you think that whole curse story, true or not, really fueled the public fascination? Did it help make Tut global?
Oh, absolutely. It played a massive role, probably disproportionate to the archaeology itself in some ways.
Really?
Yeah, the discovery itself was huge, obviously. But combine that with this thrilling, slightly spooky curse narrative amplified by newspapers worldwide.
Yeah.
It just exploded.
Instant legend.
Pretty much. It created this worldwide fascination, a real craze for Egyptology in general, and Tutankhamun specifically. Suddenly, ancient Egypt wasn't just for academics, it was a global pop culture phenomenon.
It shows how discovery, mystery, and a good story can really intertwine.
Exactly, creating a legend that, well, far outlived the reality of an unfortunate mosquito bite. That golden mask and the curse, they cemented Tut's place in history forever.
Okay, let's move to another giant among rulers. Literally, in terms of reign and, well, family size. Ramses II,
Ramses the Great.
often called Egypt's most powerful pharaoh. Reigned for an incredible 6 decades, something like 1279 to 1213 BC. Lived to be over 90. Fathered, they say, over 100 children.
A legendary figure, no question. Built more monuments than probably any other pharaoh.
But his afterlife journey, his mummy's journey, also had quite a saga. A testament maybe to some ancient forward-thinking, or maybe just desperation against tomb robbers.
His mummy story is as epic as his life, in a way. So he was originally entombed in the Valley of the Kings, standard practice for a great pharaoh.
Right.
But the ancient priests knew tomb robbing was rampant. It was a constant problem. So they took these extraordinary measures to protect Ramesses and other great pharaohs.
What did they do?
Later on, long after his death, they secretly moved his mummy. And not just his more than 50 other royal mummies, rulers, and nobles, including people like Seti Thutmose III.
50. Where did they move them?
They moved them all to a secret royal cache, a hidden tomb complex at Deir el-Bahri. It was rediscovered in 1881. These priests basically carried out this complex clandestine operation to hide them all away safely, like creating a high-security vault for their most revered ancestors.
That is just incredible foresight and organization, moving dozens of royal mummies in secret.
Wow,
Yeah.
kept them safe for centuries.
Yeah. But my absolute favorite quirky detail about Ramesses II comes much, much later. Ties into those bureaucratic quirks we mentioned.
Oh, the passport.
Yes. So in 1974, archaeologists notice his mummy is deteriorating, needs treatment for a fungal infection.
Right, modern conservation issues.
So they decide to fly him to Paris for specialized treatment. But, and here's the kicker, before he could travel, Ramesses II was actually issued an Egyptian passport.
It's brilliant.
And the occupation listed, King, deceased.
King deceased. Perfect.
So what does this seemingly funny little anecdote actually tell us about how we view these ancient figures today?
Well, it's funny, but it's also quite profound, I think. That passport, while a bit strange, it shows this surprising level of modern reverence for ancient human remains.
More than just artifacts.
Exactly. It highlights this shift. Archaeologists, conservators, they see these individuals not just as objects to study, but as historical figures who deserve dignity, formal recognition, even across thousands of years.
Like heads of state, almost. Yeah.
In a way, yeah. They're not just things. They're seen as deserving the same kind of courtesies, even the bureaucratic paperwork that a living dignitary might get. It speaks to this deep respect for the individual identity that lasts through time, bridges that gap between ancient and modern in a really unique way.
That's a great way to put it, a blend of reverence and modern process. Okay, so we've seen these individual powerful pharaohs. Let's shift now to a discovery that gives us a much broader look. A communal glimpse into ancient Egyptian society. The Valley of the Golden Mummies.
Ah, yes. Baharia Oasis.
Right, out in Egypt's western desert. A major agricultural and trade hub back in the day. And the discovery itself was, again, totally accidental, pure chance.
That's right. Happened in 1996. An antiquities guard was just riding his donkey near an old Greek temple site there.
Okay.
Suddenly, the donkey's leg just stumbled into a hole in the ground, a simple misstep, but it revealed an opening right on the edge of a tomb.
Just like that. A donkey finds a tomb.
Just like that. Pure archaeological luck. And it led to one of the most significant Egyptian finds in recent memory.
Which then brought in Dr. Haas's team again, right? They started excavating what quickly became known as the Valley of the Golden Mummies. So this wasn't just one tomb.
No. It was a huge necropolis, a massive cemetery. And the findings were incredible, really surpassed all initial expectations.
What did they find?
Well, the first few digs uncovered several hundred mummies, dating mostly to Egypt's Greco-Roman period, so later than the pharaohs we've mostly discussed.
Okay, a different era.
Yeah. And alongside the mummies, a real treasure trove of artifacts, pottery, jewelry, statues, and especially these amazing funerary masks. Many were gilded, covered in gold leaf.
Hence the name, Valley of the Golden Mummies.
Exactly. But what was really striking was the diversity, the adornments, the quality of the mummification, the coffins. It varied hugely. Meaning it strongly suggested this wasn't just for the super rich. This cemetery served people from all levels of society. You had wealthy merchants with elaborate gilded masks and fine coffins, sure, but also middle-class people, maybe with simpler plaster masks, and even poorer inhabitants with very basic burials.
So a real cross-section of the whole community.
Precisely.
Okay.
It gave us this rare, comprehensive look at an entire town, basically.
Yeah.
Elite, common citizens, everyone. And how they all approached death and the afterlife during that specific Greco-Roman period. It showed that mummification, or at least some form of it, was much more widespread than maybe previously thought.
It really paints a picture of everyday ancient life and death, not just the pharaohs. And the archaeologists think this is just the beginning there, right? They estimate maybe as many as 10,000 more mummies could still be buried under the sand.
That's the estimate, yes. 10,000. It's staggering to think about.
That really raises an important question then. What more could be hiding there? What profound insights are just waiting to be uncovered, potentially reshaping our whole understanding of that period?
It's an incredibly exciting thought, isn't it? The potential scale is just immense. It suggests future finds there could seriously challenge or, deeply reshape our current understanding of Greco-Roman Egypt. Maybe even earlier times, too. Every single mummy uncovered, every artifact, adds another vital piece to this huge historical puzzle. It constantly evolves our story of the past. The possibility of finding completely new social structures, maybe medical insights from the bodies, or even cultural practices we know nothing about. It's all potentially still there, just waiting beneath the sand.
What a journey we've taken today. Seriously. From ginger, naturally preserved, showing us nature's role way back at the start, to the incredible detective work, identifying Hatshepsut from just a single tooth, solving that ancient cold case.
Amazing story.
And King Tut, his treasures captivating the whole world, sparking that whole curse myth. Then Ramesses II, the great pharaoh, with his epic reign and his modern-day passport, showing how our own views change.
Right.
And finally, the Valley of the Golden Mummies, giving us that incredible snapshot of an entire community, rich and poor, facing the afterlife together. Each discovery offers these unique, often really surprising insights into ancient Egyptian life, their beliefs, their society, even their record-keeping.
Absolutely.
These glimpses into the past, they really do enrich our understanding of humanity's long, fascinating story.
Makes you feel connected somehow.
They certainly do. The enduring legacy of these individuals have preserved through all this time. It just keeps fueling our quest for knowledge through archaeology. They remind us that history isn't just like dates and big battles.
Yeah, no.
It's stories of real lives lived, beliefs held deeply, and this fundamental human connection to what comes next, to the afterlife. And maybe, the most profound insight is simply that the desert still holds so many secrets. It's still waiting to surprise us.
A perfect thought to end on. The past is still speaking.
Always.
Thank you for listening to this Know and Go episode.